And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is The Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. The president was in Belvidere, Illinois. The newly reopened Stellantis plant, part of the UAW's agreement with Stellantis, bringing jobs back to America, touting the fact that, you know what, Americans work harder than anybody and just want a fair shot. Seems fairly reasonable, but all our mainstream corporate-controlled media could report on is that there was a loud noise in the background, and the president wanted the press to know that it wasn't him falling. And that's what they grabbed onto. That's the story. Biden didn't fall. Did you know Biden's old? Yeah, that's what you're supposed to think when you hear that. Biden's old. And he is. And I admit that. But here's what I love about the guy. It's about the jobs, man. It's about giving workers an opportunity to fight for better wages, hours, conditions. He was in Belvidere, Illinois, lobbying for, the UAW's endorsement, because guess what? Gonna need it. And I think earned it. And this is one of those days where I had a really good day today because, I had a very long conversation with a Trumpy. And, not a crazy Trumpy, but still someone who had all the talking points, had all the things in line, ready to but. And I'm going, look, I don't care about all of the red hat, blue hat stuff. I've never cared about that. I don't get into the team sport stuff. What I care about is this guy is in the House of Labor. This guy is 100% behind working people. And happened to be a Teamster I was talking to. I said, every Teamster in this country should be voting for Joe Biden because he saved their pensions. He saved multi-employer pension funds in this country, something Trump refused to do, had 4 years to do, didn't. And this is one of those moments where you go thing after thing, checking off the box, helping working people. And, I had to go through this long history of understand how we got to this point. And we got to this point because for decades, corporate America and the very wealthy have had their way. Whatever they've wanted, they've gotten. Tax breaks, deregulation, crushing unions, not increasing the minimum wage. Go down the list of all of the things, passing no rights at work laws, destroying unemployment benefits, destroying workers' compensation, all of what built the most prosperous, strongest working class in history. Republicans and corporate Democrats have been attacking. And I said, look, for me, it's not about red hat, blue hat. It's about hard hat. It's about making sure that what we work for, what we earn, we get compensated for. And I said, I don't care about Joe Biden being able to deliver a speech, and he gave a great one today from Belvidere, Illinois. But I think about the people that he put into place. And you think of the head of the NLRB, the general counsel there, that Jennifer Abruzzo. I don't know what else to say. If you're a labor person, that's all that should be said. But sadly, most people don't know who she is. She is fundamentally changing decades of attacks on workers by returning the NLRB to an advocate for working people, making sure that the NLRA works for working people. And I know, look, it's outdated. It needs to be revamped in major ways, and we need to really have comprehensive major labor law reform in this country. But these are people who are trying. Unlike the previous administration, unlike the Trump years, where it was all attack. Look at Labor Secretary. I love Julie Sue. She was, in California, someone who was standing up for working people there. Compare that to Trump's, labor secretary choices. Andy Puzder, Carl's Jr. CEO, who wanted to automate everything and put people out of work. Said, if you want to raise the minimum wage, we'll just automate you out of a job. That would be their labor secretary. Antonin Scalia's son, Eugene, that's who Trump chose. Now, if you're a working person, just looking at that, how can you possibly even consider the Orange Menace? How can you possibly consider Trump in that vein. And then there's all of the other things that have come out of this administration, the infrastructure bill. We just, the other day, what was it, $16.8 billion in Amtrak investments, maybe going to pull Amtrak into, I don't know, the 20th, maybe close to the 21st century, so that maybe we can catch up to the rest of the world. I got to tell you, personally, I want to be ahead of the rest of the world. We as a country used to push the bounds of technological advancement. We used to be the country that everyone envied infrastructure-wise or investment-wise. We used to be the country that dreamed big. I grew up believing we were going to be the Jetsons. And sadly, the Jetsons are what you see when you go to China. We're still the Flintstones. Because if you fly into LAX coming out of Beijing, it's like going from the Jetsons to the Flintstones. Because we haven't made the investments. And why? Well, because we got to give tax cuts to rich people. We've created a glutton class at the very top who have been more than happy to line their own pockets at the expense of you and me and everybody else. So am I surprised that our media reports Joe Biden didn't fall down today? No. Never mind the fact that because of the UAW victory, jobs are coming back to Belvedere, Illinois. Stellantis is going to start making vehicles there again. And maybe the Jeep Patriot I loved so much, maybe that will be made in the U.S. again instead of that Renegade they made in Mexico. That is good stuff. And look, Democrats are finally getting their heads where it needs to be. Finally, the Senate is holding hearings on, how do we hold corporate America in check? Look, Bob Casey just came out with this study, and we've all known what the study said. He's just backed it up with numbers and actual facts. But we've known corporate America has been screwing us over. Corporate America has been deep in our pockets, robbing us blind. Calls it greedflation. We've heard this before. I've said it before 1,000 times. But now you've actually got the numbers. 14% in inflation after the pandemic. 75% corporate profits went up. Do you think they're correlated? Do you think that they have something to do with each other? And I had this conversation with my Trump friend who, because we started off by talking about cars. He likes my Jeep. I liked his Chevy pickup truck. A lot of money for it. And we were talking about, he was saying, I was going to buy a used one. And he was going through this whole story about how the person that he was going to buy it from had bought it, a month earlier for $5,000 cheaper. And he was just trying, because the used car market was, just insane. And he was just trying to line his pocket. And I said, did Joe Biden do that? This is how inflation happens. Everybody's got their greed tenants on. And I got a bunch of emails on this yesterday when I talked about it. I said, we've always been greedy. What stopped it before? What stopped it before is there was competition. There was always something else. We didn't have a stuck supply chain. And oh, by the way, we didn't have a convenient excuse. We just can't get stuff. It's quite remarkable. But the Senate is going to have the Senate Help Committee, the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. They're going to have a hearing next week, standing up against corporate greed, how unions and improving the lives of working families. And look, this is important. This is an important topic. Because I've said for a very long time, you want to hold corporate America in check? Unionize. You want to bring this country back together? You reunite them? Unionize. You want to do a lot of the good things that we haven't been able to do? You kind of get the drift, right? We got to come back together.